What's up, guys? Interisti and Serie A fans. When you see me wearing a non-Inter kit, when you see me being the neutral, you know what time it is. It's the time to be neutral. And of course, I don't care if you think that fans of a team shouldn't rep other teams' kits. This is too much of this is an all-timer kit, man. Like, how can you not rep this? But yeah, we got to talk about Serie A or Serie As, man, because at this beginning of the season, it has been Serie As, really has been a very underwhelming start to the season. We'll cover all that. We'll cover the leaders, the ones at the bottom, the changes in managers. It has been an interesting last few weeks in Serie A. So we'll cover all that. But before we get into it all, make sure you leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And also, comment down below. I feel like I've been going into a little bit of autopilot mode on my channel of just making the same videos, reactions, blah, 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 live streams. But is there anything that you want to see on this channel? I do want to try and improve and change things around, especially now that we've got the international break to strategize and think about things. So if you do take some time, I appreciate it. Thank you. But let's get into it. The first topic is the problem with the Serie A quality and entertainment this season. And that is, of course, has been talked about on different podcasts. I tweeted about it, I think, last week or even 2 weeks ago. And the situation actually hasn't changed since I tweeted about it. Hakan Çalhanoğlu is still the top scorer in Serie A. And you have to go all the way down to, well, actually, Pinamonti's climbed up a bit. Boni's there. When I tweeted, these guys were a little bit lower. But this situation at the moment just kind of shows the dearth in striker quality. But I think it's shown in the games as well. Like when you watch the games, the other day, Serie A went viral because we had so many nil-nils, and I think there was a tweet that said Serie A has had the most nil-nils out of all the leagues, top 5 European leagues this season. And of course, I also talked about that on my TikTok. If you don't follow me there, check me out on there as well. But in heritage wise, when I tweeted it out, when people reply are like, well, this is what Serie A is about. Like, what are you on about? This is Serie A's heritage. This is cultural heritage. That is true. That is true, guys. But are you actually watching the games? Because if you actually watch the games, you can't tell me that has been a great season. This is not cultural heritage, what we're seeing. These are teams. And I think the biggest problem, well, there's two real big problems. One is the refereeing and the amount of effective time that's allowed in the actual play. So the actual time played, the actual time football is moving between players' feet. That's one big problem because we have so many fouls, so many stoppages, so many niggling little fouls that are called by referees, and the players on the floor rolling around and wasting time, which again, it is cultural heritage, Serie A heritage, but then that hurts the entertainment factor, which Serie A, of course, is trying to grow because we're not the top league anymore. So we are a challenger league. And when you're a challenger league, you need to be providing something different or at least entertaining. This isn't entertaining. And then the other issue is a lot of the teams, it might seem simplistic or a little bit reductive to say, but too many teams in Serie A play 3-5-2, or what essentially is a 5-3-2 formation. The problem with that is, and Inter are the only proponent that play it in an attacking sense, pretty much, in not just Serie A, in Europe, because I saw even on some Premtard podcast the other day, they were talking about how, no one rates a three at the back formation. It wouldn't do well in Premier League because it's too defensive and all that. But in Serie A, pretty much half the league plays a variation of a 3-5-2, and the issue with that is a 3-5-2, as I said, is basically 5 defenders when they're in the attacking. So they're doing it because it's the easy thing to play. It's easier for the centre backs to play in a 3 rather than a 2. You got more of these hybrid players these days that can play kind of the full backs that convert into centre backs, wingers that turn into wing backs that weren't good enough to be wingers, that didn't have enough output, they turn into wing backs. And then even the players that they play in the midfield, a lot of the times that interplay, basically, like we know as Interisti, Hakan used to be like a number 10 attacking midfielder. Barella's also more attacking. Mkhitaryan was like a winger attacking midfielder most of his life. We play attacking players in that position, whereas other Serie A teams, they'll even play like the three midfielders might be three defensive midfielders. Like for example, like let me give you an example of Cremonese. They play like Warren Bondo, Van de Putte, and Payero. That's like just one example of a midfield they played recently. Like Van de Putte is kind of creative, but like they're all kind of their main goal is to destroy, run up and down, box to box, and destroy. And then they got two wing backs and then two strikers, but then one of the strikers is really kind of roaming around behind and one. It's more like a 3-5-1-1 or a 5-3-1-1. When you get an attacking situation, who has the ball? Who's the creator in a team like that? When you get the ball there, it will be the wing backs, unless you have someone like Di Marco. That's not good. That your creation is coming from the defensive players or the midfielders, and most attacks just die. They just die a very boring end. So overall, there is a big issue in Serie A in the what the coaches are choosing to play, the mentality, the safety in terms of they're just going for, yeah, these guys will know how to play a 3-5-2. It's the easy way out. I'm under pressure. I just need to get some points on the board. Let's play a 3-5-2. I think that is a big issue. And of course, qualitatively, because of the lack of money, the Premier League stealing all the best players, it's qualitatively not as good in terms of the actual players that we have in the league. But regardless of that, now let's move on to some positives. The title race is once again one of the more exciting ones in Europe. I mean, the fact that you got so many teams here just within 3 points of each other in the top 5, and then Juve just behind there as well. So within literally 5 points or 6 points, even it goes down all to 7th. Sassuolo as well in there. It makes up for a very interesting, exciting Scudetto race, top 4 race, and European race. So that's very, very nice. And of course, you've got some standout players, exciting players like Nico Paz, Boni, Yildiz, the guys that we know are probably going to be stolen by the other big teams around Europe. Now let's move on to some of the latest Serie A news. Antonio Conte, that is my kind of clickbaity title. Is he quitting? Is he going to leave Napoli? If I was an Inter fan and these types of news were coming out about my coach, I would be like, this is the media. Don't listen to the media. This is all like being pumped up to create clickbait news and generate interest in Napoli. But over the last few days, there has been confirmations or murmurings outside of the Napoli sphere that Conte actually is thinking about quitting, or he's unsure of the situation at the moment. He actually feels not fully 100% committed to this Napoli project. Fabrizio Romano, he has said Conte never submitted his resignation to Napoli immediately. And then De Laurentiis actually, even the fact that De Laurentiis and Napoli came out with a statement to deny all of this also shows there is something not quite right. The priority now is to restore internal balance, something that does not concern only the president. This will be a long international break in which Napoli must discuss several things. And yesterday there was also a confirmation that Conte is taking a break, that he's not going to be doing the coaching in this international break until I think they said the 17th. It will be Stellini, his number 2. So whether he's there's something not quite right with Conte at the moment, whether he's drained, whether he's not convinced, whether he feels like he's actually failing. Because he actually, the other day, the first time that I've ever seen Conte say, I take responsibility. I'm not able to get the best out of these players this year like I was last year. You very rarely see Conte do this. And just the whole vibe, his whole vibe at the moment, Conte, doesn't look quite right. It kind of reminds you of that kind of second season at Chelsea, the when he left Juve, or the summer when he left Inter. That kind of second, third season Conte vibe that you get a lot of the times with Conte. Something isn't quite right. And things, even though they're only a few points off the top, there's something clearly not right in his preseason preparation, which is usually, you know, top notch, spot on by Conte and his staff. Because look how many injuries they've had since the start of the season. 7 affaticamenti, so 7 fatigue related injuries, 6 injuries, 1 tear or 1 little stiramientos, like, yeah, like a tear, I guess. Meret, Buongiorno, Rahmani, Oliveira, Spinazzola, Mazzocchi, Lobotka, Gilmo, De Bruyne, Politano, Hoyland, Lukaku, Anguissa today has come out. Apparently he's got, well, this conflicting reports that his injury could be semi-serious, that he's out for at least a month. And then there's other conflicting reports that say that he's not out for that long. But regardless, it's piling up. Having 2 games a week is piling up already on Antonio Conte, which has always been his biggest criticism against Antonio Conte. But of course, if they drop out of the Champions League, which it looks like they probably will, and they make a Scudetto pact, so to say, or like, you know, now we can just knuckle down, focus on the Scudetto again, 1 game a week, then we know they can mount a serious title challenge again. And I can see that happening. So definitely things are not looking rosy, not looking great at Napoli right now, but you can never count them out. Inter at the top, of course. I'm not going to speak too much about them. We speak enough about Inter here, but Christian Chivu, just let me give him just a quick round of applause, because when he was signed, I was a Chivu doubter, but not because of doubting him specifically. It's just my doubt came from lack of knowledge. There was nothing available for me to look at what Chivu was all about. He was a rookie with only 13 games experience at the top flight level. If you were positive about Chivu, it was based on either you were blindly trusting Marotta Ausilio in their choice, which is also fine. They've got a good track record over their career. It's Marotta, not to be discussed in his track record of coaches. Or you were just blindly, positive vibes. He's a former Inter player, back Chivu, which I also am, because he is a former Inter great. So I'm always going to back him. But if you told me that Inter at this stage, after the second international break, mid-November, would be top of the league, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But if you follow me, I said, regardless if it's a rookie or Allegri, whoever manages this team has to be challenging for the Scudetto. This team the squad is still top notch, if not the best squad in Serie A, which is debatable, but it's definitely up there. So I expected us to be maybe on 22, 21 points, maybe not 24. So shouts out to Christian Chivu for that. Gasperini doing fantastic work with basically not a striker there, having the best defense in Serie A. It's absolutely crazy. Gasperini having the best defense alongside Arsenal in the whole of Europe, the least goals conceded. That is crazy. But again, I feel like this is not sustainable. Surely it's not sustainable. Milan, we'll find out in the next game against Inter what they're truly made of. But this is what I expected from Allegri, solidifying the defense, challenging for the Scudetto up until a certain point. Then let's see after January what they've really got, what they really got. And then Bologna, let's start, actually, let me get into some of the latest news or new arrivals in Serie A or sackings. So Pioli, wearing the Fiorentina shirt. Pioli's finally gone, Vanoli in. We know it was overdue. Fiorentina bottom of Serie A, which is absolutely disgraceful. How is that squad bottom of Serie A with only 9 goals scored? I mean, if Pioli was going out, at least like I would have just gone all out attack, man. Try to score 18 goals and concede 18 goals. But how are you scoring only 9 goals with all that firepower you've been given? So Vanoli, I feel like it's not the most exciting choice, but I don't think they needed an exciting choice. He did well at Torino last year. He's done well in the past as well at Venezia. I think he'll be a good choice. He does usually play 3 at the back. He's kind of like a Conte school. He's come from the Conte school. He was a former assistant with Conte. I think he will solidify things and get them back to the top half of the table. which actually could be a stretch now because we're already kind of almost third way into the season. But that should help him. He just needs to get Moise Kean firing. That's the key. Just get Moise Kean firing. Hopefully De Gea saves your ass like a lot of times that he's done in the past, and they should be all right. Ivan Juric sacked from Atalanta. This one actually is one where, if you remember my predictions at the beginning of the season, I was being contrarian. I was like, everyone's predicting Juric to get sacked. I liked Juric's work at Hellas Verona and Torino. I like giving managers a second chance. You saw what happened with like Pioli when he won the Scudetto, Spalletti winning with Napoli. I feel like Serie A does have these stories of people, managers coming back, redeeming themselves. Juric was the Gasperini protege. He's like, he's probably Gasperini who picked Juric, to be honest. In the end, I think the team did let him down. The results weren't there. He fell out with Ademola Lookman. Palladino's there, which is the choice that I think pretty much 99% of Serie A fans were saying they should have done originally anyway, hired Raffaele Palladino. So now we can see how that will work out. But yeah, he should get Atalanta back on track as well. Again, focus on getting Ademola Lookman firing again, get Scamacca fit and firing again. I don't think Kristovic is Atalanta level, but if you can get him to score finally and start wasting chances, they'll be all right. I'm excited to watch Atalanta under Palladino now. Good to see Daniele De Rossi back in Serie A. Not the team probably he wanted, or even I was envisaging for him, but this was what was available. Patrick Vieira, he did well last season, but this season they've fallen off a cliff. They won just before De Rossi was hired with Crescito as the temporary coach, and they drew already the first game under De Rossi. On a selfish level, I want to see Valentin Carboni get more minutes now under De Rossi. And let's see what he's truly made of. I don't think he's been given a proper chance. The Roma firing was, I think, I don't think that was correct. Too early. The Spal period, we can't really judge him off that as well. So we haven't been able to really judge De Rossi as a coach yet. So this will be finally a decent test to find out what type of coach is Daniele De Rossi. I'm interested to watch them. And we need to speak about this guy, Vincenzo Italiano. Might be the most underrated coach in Serie A and Europe because he's not linked with any big Serie A teams, or he gets murmured here and there, but he never really gets linked strongly or even suggested strongly for any jobs. In Europe, I don't see him linked to any big teams or even just, Premier League teams usually are always sniffing around Italian coaches. But the work that he's done over the last few years has been fantastic. At Fiorentina, they definitely miss him now. At Bologna, I was expecting them to take a step back this season. I still, at some point, I don't expect them to be in the top 5. But they sold him. They sold their best players. Every year they sold the best players. This year they replaced them with like Immobile, who's been injured, Bernardeschi. And he still manages to perform really well defensively, which is the big criticism on Italiano. They've been super, super solid. And yeah, I think this might be the season where at the end of it, he finally probably gets a big job in Italy. And maybe, I think if Conte leaves Napoli, I feel like with his 4-3-3, this style of play, I think De Laurentiis and Napoli will be the ones come calling for him. But yeah, that is the state of things at the moment. Sassuolo, surprisingly in the top 8, but I did expect them to be very comfortably past relegation zone. I don't think they should be anywhere near relegation zone. Pisa got a win finally. We're only left with 2 teams without wins, Fiorentina and Hellas Verona. How long? Which team will get the first win, guys? Let's leave with a prediction. Which are the 2 teams get a win next? I don't think Juve are gonna let Fiorentina get a win next time. I think it might be Hellas Verona against Parma. That's my prediction. You guys let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this Serie A recap, news, etc. Let me know your thoughts on all that was discussed. It was a long video. Hope you enjoyed it. Ciao ragazzi. Forza Serie A.